Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. This is going to be a real quick one. I just wanted to point out that for anybody who is trying to install Switch emulation on Batocera right now, there's some things to watch out for. Currently, the method of using the curl-l switch.batocera.pro, which is probably one of the most popular ways of installing Switch emulation on Batocera, that's not going to work anymore, at least not for right now. Because that also, I think, uses the scripts from the Ordovis batocera-switch GitHub repository. And that repo is still up and it's still there. However, if you try to do the install, it's not going to install anything. And if you have it installed already on Batocera and you go into ports and run the switch updater, you're going to see it fail around when it updates or tries to update the Yuzu early access version. And what I believe is happening is looking through the updater script, it is pointing at the Pineapple EA Pineapple source GitHub repository for Yuzu EA. And I have that pulled up here. And as you can see now, it is gone. It is no longer available due to a DMCA takedown. So what I'm hoping, like a week or two ago, one of the developers made a commit to the script that changed the location of where it gets like the regular Yuzu, that last version of Yuzu from. So I'm hoping they'll just update Yuzu EA here, because it seems like what's happening is it's not able to get a URL value. So when you like run the switch updater, you'll see it gets to Yuzu EA and it says something like, no valid URL or no URL present. And then the rest of the script just kind of bombs out because it's not getting a value back it was expecting, and it's trying to do things in the script with that, and it can't because it's not there, and it eventually just exits out. And it's slightly annoying for me because while Yuzu and Yuzu EA, I'm fine with the final versions. They're not going to be updated anymore. I'm cool with that. This does stop the Switch updater from actually getting to the part where it will update Ryujinx. So it's a little annoying, but it's an issue that I think will get sorted out. I'm almost certain that probably within the next week, a developer will probably just change the location of the Yuzu EA download in the script, and it will basically just magically start working for all of us again. But I did want to bring this to your attention. And it was not just the Pineapple source repository of Pineapple EA. It was a lot of repos. Here's the actual notice that GitHub got, or the information about the DMCA takedown that they're providing to us. And it goes in and it says, before disabling any content in relation to this takedown notice, GitHub did the following. And that's, contacted the owners of the parent repository, provided information to all affected repository owners on how to submit a DMCA counter notice, and offered to connect all affected repository owners with legal resources as part of GitHub's commitment to standing up for developers. I think that's really good. It's, here's a bad thing that's happening, but, we're at least going to help you, deal with it and brace for it, and potentially appeal it. But and I think that's all well and fine, but the interesting part about it here is, note, because the reported network that contained the allegedly infringing content was larger than 100 repositories, and the submitter alleged that all or most of the forks were infringing to the same extent as the parent repository, GitHub processed the takedown notice against the entire network of 8,535 repositories, inclusive of the parent repository. So, yes, this was one DMCA notice that has basically taken down 8,500 repositories on GitHub. This is a lot of forks that just they ain't there no more. Unfortunately, I don't really have a positive spin to put on this. You know, uh, the most positive thing I can say is that while the batocera-switch curl installer and switch updater aren't working, if you're looking to get Yuzu running, then check out my video on how to do that for the last version, 1734. Because my method of doing that is still at this moment available, and it will still work. Just once you get it installed, you know, the switch updater script is not gonna work until it gets fixed by the developers. But it is still possible to get Yuzu installed. When I made that, and again, I want to go out of my way to credit, you know, I'm basically just using the Ordovus batocera-switch method of getting it installed. And I basically, after installing it, or having it installed on my batocera system, I basically threw an app image for the last version of Yuzu on it, and just figured out what all I needed to bundle up in order to put it on a new system, and it just kind of went from there. So like basically the Ordovus repo are the real heroes who gave us the method of doing like the curl-l method of installing switch emulation on batocera, and I just sort of took their work and basically just made what I call the I did very little to it, but then sort of made it the offline installer that you may be familiar with and that I talk about in another video on this channel. So yeah, that should still work to get Yuzu installed, but yeah, really hoping that they do fix the updater script, because I would like to always make sure I have like a recent version of Ryujinx. Because, and I've said it, I think in other videos, I really like, for the games that we'll play, I really like Yuzu. I was always a fan of Yuzu. I always liked Yuzu better. But since it's not really a thing anymore, I'm looking at Ryujinx as being sort of the future going forward for Switch emulation, especially for like newer games and things that may or may not work properly on the last version of Yuzu. I look to Ryujinx to, make those games become a possibility. So I really think they're kind of the future, and I trust them more than I trust a lot of the forks that have just popped up. So that's just sort of my personal opinion, but I do kind of like having an updated version of Ryujinx. And if they ever decide to go after Ryujinx, I want to make sure that I keep my version up to date in case I need to do like another quote-unquote offline installer.